What's up, guys? Austin Blankenship, Rack City MTG. Would you look at that? There we go. Glad I clear my throat just a little bit. It has been a while. It has been a while. I know. Quick, I'll try to timestamp so anyone who wants to jump straight into the Pure Deck Tech can jump forward a little bit. But just a quick update. I am also a high school coach and coach a couple different sports, but the biggest one being coach basketball. So I don't during basketball season, it's very difficult for me to record as much content. I still play a lot of Magic during that time period, but play a lot more casually. Play if you look at my stats and stuff here, a lot of Penny Dreadful, a lot of Commander, things like that. I still enjoy Modern. There was a while with Luris in the format that it had just become so stale to me and the play pattern so unfun that I just had kind of shelved for a while. I played one or two leagues here or there, got a couple 4-1s, but nothing that you all hadn't seen before. No real new tech. Nothing worth making an entire new video about. But I'm excited to say we're back at it. Couple things before we even start the deck tech. There is a mono black control deck going around with Invoke Despair that I've considered trying a little bit, or at least trying a version of it, but I'm not a big fan of the card Invoke Despair. But with Urza Saga, but the Cabal Coffers and Urborg combo, and going up to 4 of the Expedition maps, things like that. So if you'd be interested in seeing that content, probably would not be a rack in the 75, but very similar deck lists. Very similar concepts. In fact, we're on the same plan, more or less, they are with our 6.5. I would call this maybe a half and this a half. So I guess you could say 7 main deck removal spells. The one card really that's different than what we've ran in the past is I brought Collective Brutality back in the main deck as a one of. Izzet decks are good enough. There's so many matchups where this has enough flexibility that as a one-of, it's almost never going to be a dead card. So the only exception maybe being Tron, but even then, you can get lucky and still hit maybe an Ancient Stirrings or a Sylvan Scrying and things like that. So there's no matchups where it's truly dead that I can think of. I guess if 5-color humans, we play against them, but even then, you still can maybe pick off a creature with its mode. So, of course, always it can just be a bad burn spell, but ideally, when you play this card, you want to be able to discard an Urborg or something like that and get 2-for-1 value. But one of the things that I toyed with a lot as well, if you've noticed, outside of Smallpox and our one of Collective Brutality, which can be about anything, since the Luris ban, I've really, really thought hard about running Obosh as the companion. As of now, though, one, because of our sideboard cards, and I'll explain those here in a minute. But Murktide Regent decks and other decks are running so many larger creatures now, and creatures that get out of the Fatal Push Bloodchief's Thirst range easily, that Smallpox is now much better than it was 2 or 3 months ago. So, if anything, it's kind of better to run Smallpox now than it used to be, which is a bit unfortunate because I have, I even have like a list right here on the side that a lot of fun ideas, a lot of different things that you can do with Obosh and Liliana of the Veil as the only 3-drop and maybe a Murderous Rider or things like that. So that's something I've toyed with on stream once before. I may toy with it again in the near future, just because like this card too, every legendary creature that you can get in your 75 makes this card a little bit better and justifies it being in your deck a little bit more as a one of. So I hear a lot of people saying that this card is free, and that's not exactly true. It's almost free to run. There is the slight downside of the amount of non-swamp lands you want to run with a Castle Lochtwain in your deck, but one of each shouldn't hurt us too much. Just keep in mind that if you're planning on running like 3 or 4 of this card or some number of this card, that is a non-bow together. I mean, they aren't unplayable together or anything like that, or even multiples of this card. But keep in mind, if you want to run the Mishra's Factories and Urza Saga and Nurturing Peatland, things like that, that there are a limit. You only have 4 Urborgs to smooth things out. So keep that in mind. But our main deck, I may make a change on this, but still for now, Murktide, Regent, and Kroxa and things like that are still just popular enough that the 2 Nihil Spellbombs, given that they cycling, are worth running in the main deck, in my opinion. That opinion may change after a while. Sideboard, and this is the other reason why I'm not completely sold on Obosh yet, is right now, Leyline of the Void is maybe our best sideboard card again. So 4 of those running in this meta, things like Oops All Spells and the odd dredge deck or living in deck, things like that, just makes those matchups a lot easier. And the card that I think might be the one of, if not the best cards in this specific deck, and would maybe make me consider taking Smallpox out at some point for, not even for Obosh, but just running this as a 2 or 3 of, is Karn Scion of Urza. This plays so well into our hand of just, it's pretty innocuous on the surface, but it plays into our game plan really well of having a high density of 1-drop artifacts. Engineered Explosives isn't as popular as it once was. It's still making its way around in the Delver-style decks, but not being able to repeat it over and over again with Lurrus, things like that, makes the 1-drop artifact, 0-drop artifact plan a little bit better. And at the worst, he's always going to be a 2-for-1, so enjoy it quite a lot. Rest of the sideboard, I'm debating whether Legion's End is not quite as powerful as it once was, but it still does its job against the decks that you need it for, so keeping it as a 2 for now. It was much better when Lurrus was floating around, but it's still pretty good. Of course, our Desperation board wipes are one of Hex Parasite to deal with Chalices, extra Planeswalker hates for the decks that 2 Pithing Needles aren't enough for. We have one more additional way to start taking off counters off. I'm not entirely sure that this is exactly the most playable card in your deck. Most of the time people play it solely when they really want to be manipulating their life total with like Death Shadow, things like that. But overall, I do think it's a good card. It has its specific niches, and I do think it's worth a single sideboard slot. That's kind of the beauty of Urza Saga, or if you're running a Karn Liberated, or not Karn Liberated, Karn the Great Creator package. But speaking of which, I'm going to go ahead and shut up, I think, actually. And we're just going to hop into a league. It's been quite a while. This is, if you ever want to see a video on Penny Dreadful as well, we'll see. There's actually a big event going on right now. We can do that one day. I have quite a bit of fun in that format. But as you can see, really not played much this season. I think I've played 2 leagues and have gone 4-1 and 3-2 this particular season. So not horrible, not amazing. I think 3-2 is about average for what I expect with 8 rack on any given day, or really any given deck if I think the deck is playable. I kind of expect that you'll win 2, lose 2, and you'll have 1 non-game at some point where someone's trying out a meme, or just generally just doing something fun, or makes a major misplay in a league. So 3-2 is pretty much, if you're playing optimally, I think that you can pretty much expect that. It's good to see M. Hayashi back at the top here. I am curious. I'll have to check in on his channel. If you've never seen his channel before, it's not a hugely followed channel for someone who is consistently, very often, one of the trophy leaders. But he has a different take on mono black control than either I or the people who are running the Invoke Despair type lists would have. And it's really interesting to run. Ironically, too, right before literally the day that Lurrus got announced that it was being banned, I had already made a video up saying, hey, if you've not tried Lurrus Rack yet, it appears that playing Lurrus as the companion and is enough of a power disparity to just go ahead and forego running Liliana of the Veil. But right as I was getting ready to make that concession and say, I don't want to have to spend the $200 for baubles or whatever crazy amount that it is for 4 Mishra's baubles and a Lurrus at the time period. It's gone down a little bit now, but not tremendously. That was finally willing to maybe say, especially with Urza Saga and the synergies and the things you can do, that little extra grindy piece of card advantage is just worth it over the Liliana of the Veil inevitability, and there are things to get around that missing inevitability with the Lurrus package. But don't have to make that concession now, do we? So excited to see what the format brings. Amulet Titan seems to be, if not the deck to beat, it maybe it and Tron I think will give us the most trouble given our current sideboard. I didn't mention the Void Mirrors, but Void Mirror is much less effective against Tron than it used to be, and considering Rhinos are less popular than they once were, I'm a little bit more willing to hear out arguments for taking it out now. This has been the longest I've queued for a league of almost 1,500 people that are active. A nearly 3 minutes in a queue is an insane amount of time. I mean, I've been drafting a lot this week. If you've ever done invasion block drafts, it's really, really rare that they bring them, but it's a very interesting, fun way to play Magic. It's just, it makes you, in a lot of ways, it makes you, maybe nostalgic about different ways that cards interacted. Like, you were allowed to interact with people's lands a lot more unlimited than you are nowadays. And we do find our match. And, there are, but like things like Gavin Verhey did a podcast on the threat of activation and how that's not a very fun thing to have like locked out board states. And that format is extremely real. We are going to take the draw. So Pygonti, I believe he is the trophy leader right now, if I'm correct. I'm guessing he is on Tron. And us taking the draw. If I had seen his name, I may have considered just taking the play. It's typically on. I can't remember if Pi is usually on Tron or if that's why Principe is usually on Tron. I think it's Pi that's usually on Tron. We'll see, though. Opponent is probably... Okay, Spirebuff Canal is actually a good sign for us. Guessing it's probably some sort of Ragavan deck, then. Alright. So that's good. I don't think we want to play around Force Negation here. I think we just want to Fatal Push this. I would be fine with the Force Negation happening in this spot. Double Saga on Urborg is a little bit annoying. It is interesting to... Well, let's Thoughtseize here. Okay. I was going to say either a Spell Pierce or a Second Consider. We are going to wait to try to get full value out of our Sagas here. Alright, Flooded Strand in the graveyard. Ideally, we would see the Murktide Reject here with no protection to back it up. So a Dashed Ragavan, okay. You got it. Alright, that's good. That's a dead card for them. And it would be a dead card for us, too, so clearing that off the top is fine. Let's just... I think we just get them Hellbent here. We'll see what this card is. If they choose to keep specifically the Ragavan. Alright, yeah, we're just going to get them Hellbent. We'll get rid of the Saga. It is a little bit of card disadvantage for us. They do have the Fiery Islet they could choose to draw instead to prevent them from having to discard the Ragavan, but after one turn here, the Ragavan will be less impactful on the board, so not tremendously worried about it. Them hitting our removal is really the most frustrating thing. Alright, so Smallpox would be a good draw in this situation. It is a bit unfortunate that we're going to have to lose out on the value of a Saga token here, but getting rid of this Murktide Regent's just imperative. So the last card in the hand is Ragavan, which 90% sure next turn they'll spend their turn dashing the Ragavan, but 3 mana kill your creature is fine in this context, especially once we get this on and we'll get our second rack going. I couldn't imagine a world where they don't just dash the Ragavan into the Liliana here. Maybe if they specifically draw like an Unholy Heat, and maybe they're considering Unholy Heating the Liliana than playing the Ragavan normally. A fairly tough decision in this spot. I do think pitching the Urza Saga to Raven's Crime was the right one. Nope, so that was the thought process here. I can't. Yeah, I was like, at this point, we have so much discard that I don't think that they could justify not just playing the Ragavan out. We'll just get another rack. There's a good argument for maybe Expedition map here, but given that we have 2 Raven's Crimes in the graveyard, this is a pretty fast clock. All right, Inquisition is a good draw here, assuming that they don't have anything. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Game 1 win. This is the deck that we're kind of built around planning for right now, so we'll take that any day. Let's see. How much do we respect Dragon Rage Channeler versus the utility of Feudal Charm against Ragavan? This is a tough decision. Maybe... What cards? Okay, so Collective Brutality doesn't play great against Force of Negation. Maybe we'll go down one Pithing Needle for the other Collective Brutality, though. I think that's all the changes we want to make. Our main deck... our opponent says kind of the perfect hand. Not gonna lie. I'm gonna say what, and I would say it was certainly good for this matchup. All right, so hopefully we draw one of our main deck spells. We do not. I think we're all right. We don't have to worry about them playing. I guess they could potentially play our spells, but I do think we just take the Ragavan here. The Brazen Borrower could be a bit annoying later with Urza Saga tokens, but we'll cross that bridge as we get to it. They could cast the Smallpox if they wanted to, but of course they do not. There is a couple different lines here. Thinking just the Mishra's Factory is the correct play. This will encourage them to play the Brazen Borrower out as a creature, while giving us the threat that we could maybe decide to block this Ragavan with the Mishra's Factory. Yep, so they're incentivized here to play that as a creature, increasing the value of our Saga token later. Let's see if they attack with this Ragavan. I'm definitely willing to make this trade. For several reasons, we're very flooded. That was about as good of a draw as we could have had here. We'll wait to do this maybe at their upkeep, in case they want to do anything at their instep, like fetch. Cast any spells. Sure, they're going to draw 2. And we'll go ahead and pop this off now. Don't think there's any reason to hold up Threat of Fatal Push, anything like that, so. Alright, that Raven's Crime makes this hand significantly better just off the jump. We'll see. Force of Negation here would be pretty good. May consider playing around Blood Moon here. So our opponent is at the point where they are considering keeping some of these cards. Interesting to play out the Spire Bluff Canal here. So EE on 1. Okay. Does incentivize us to bring the Pithing Needles back in the main deck. So they're just going to bolt me. That's fine. We will likely just get the Expedition map on our turn. Yep, just take the 3. So we are cold to a bolt off the top. But we are willing to make that. Alright, let's see. Let's get the Nihil Spellbomb here. Just for the sake of Dash Ragavan, let's not. Let's actually not attack here. Alright, so we'll see how this works out. Now we'll have several different modes of protection. We're hedged against this engineered explosives. We really don't want to die to a Dash Ragavan in this spot. So we're going to do this. Play the Urza Saga. And that way we just make the Murktide Regents less threatening as well. Actually uncastable in this specific spot. Alright. So now we can start attacking a little bit. Our opponent is a very accomplished Magic player. So I am quieter than I normally am. I apologize, making sure I don't make any major misplays. So our opponent will have knowledge of our hand. That's fine. We do have to kind of get the rack in this situation. I imagine our opponent will be tempted to blow it up right now. We do have fairly clear lethal on board here. They'd have to have a pretty good string of 2 cards. And GG. I believe that's the trophy leader. Yep, Pygonti at 34. So taking down the trophy leader 2-0. Match 1, game 1. So now we can get back to talking a little bit more about the deck. As you can see, that's actually the matchup that, since that deck has evolved and it's no longer like a Snapcaster, Delver type true mid-rangey over-the-top deck, and it really is all in on those 1-drops and the Murktide Reject for efficiency, we have a really good ability to out-efficient decks that are like that. That's just, I would say that we're probably like 65% favored in that matchup. So, but consistently, everyone always, that's, he didn't outright say it, but I'm sure he's thinking like, oh man, got lucky stomped by the meme deck, and maybe that's true some amount of the time, but we do tend to. I think if this is, I'm not sure if this is the Fluffy Wolf that has a YouTube channel or not. If it is, and one of your I doubt he watches any of this content, but if you happen to watch Fluffy Wolf's content as well, and you watch this content, give him a quick shout out for me. I enjoy his content. He tends to play more fun decks. I do like the fact that I play a lot of 8-rack is absolutely buried in like 3 pages of Penny Dreadful stuff right now. So I would consider this a very keepable hand. I don't love how it works here, but okay, the swamp does make it a bit better. Let's lead on. I don't like fixing their mana for them for free, but we'll lead on the Urborg here. Okay, so someone who's definitely of our own mind here. Let's take the Kaya's Guile. We'll just Inquisition. Okay. At this point, I'm 50-50 on taking the Ensnaring Bridge and taking one of the Lilianas. I do think just taking the Ensnaring Bridge is right here. Crime them. This Pithing Needle is almost definitely going to be on Karn. Plains is a pretty good draw for them. Also, no playing the Liliana out in this spot. That's fine. Our opponent definitely knows what we're up to. So they're definitely going to discard the Liliana to our ability. Just play the Urza Saga. We'll see what they get rid of here. I'm guessing the second Liliana. That's fine. We'll play a Rack. And we'll play Pithing Needle on Karn, the Great Creator. So awesome. I hope this is the Fluffy Wolf I'm familiar with. If so, I'm a fan of his work. All right, so almost definitely coming after the Pithing Needle, and that's fine. All right, we're just going to pass the turn. Not just to not give the Sorcery Speed Damnation any sort of play. And to get our full value out of our Saga here. Sure. We'll see how he responds. All right. Well, fortunately we drew the map here, so I do think we just get the rack. Do think we're winning the race, albeit it's not by a tremendous amount with the knowledge. I do apologize for knocking their hand off, but they do have dam here and oh, so yep, they just overload the dam. At this point, that's fine. A top deck land into us playing Liliana and ticking up will make them almost have to. Okay. Let's just crime them. Okay, so they got rid of the Pithing Needle. That's actually good. So now we have the expedition map. They are not in the greatest spot right here. Traditionally, like black-white Pox has a worse matchup against this sort of deck. All right, so here we go. Now we can pretty much call it a wrap. Closing out the game with Liliana here. Even with the Castle Lochtwain trigger. I'm not tremendously worried. It should be lethal next turn no matter what, because we have the line of we could expedition map for just any land, and Ravens crime them plus the Liliana's uptick. So unless they have like prismatic ending and something else, our line is pretty clear that we win this matchup. All right. So they do get rid of our Ravens crime. Okay, so they saw that line. See if we can get something with Thoughtseize. All right, so Thoughtseize. Tick up. We do have to go ahead and attack because they can draw a card with Castle Lochtwain, I believe, and that will put them at 1 if we were to just pass. This way they should be dead regardless of what they do. Interesting matchup. So they do appear to be... This looks very much so like the deck Robert Leva plays. That is a pretty good deck, mind you. So the Cling to Dust flashback keeps them alive for 1 turn, right? Yep, 1 turn. All right, so that should end the game right there because we can just attack with Mishra's Factory, and that'll be lethal. Because they will... Oh, so they... Yeah, so... Doesn't really particularly matter what they do here in this spot. Yep. Good game to our opponent. Yeah, keep in mind that like that version of the deck is very valid. They might end up even... they may 2-0 us, or they might 2-0 us the last 2 games here, but I think there's a lot of merits for the white splash compared to the mono black. So I'm not too sold on Smallpox in this particular matchup. Let's go down Smallpox completely, up Pithing Needle, Legion's End, and maybe consider Hex Parasite over one of the Nihil Spellbombs. But Legion's End in case there's some lingering souls, things like that. That can be quite annoying. In that regard too, let's consider ditching 2 Fatal Pushes for the 2 Collective Brutalities. I like running it back this way. I am curious if Fluffy will take the play or the draw here. I would imagine you take the draw in the Mire. Like it seems like the right thing to do, but yep. So they do choose to not play first, so that's good. We are playing against someone who knows their deck well. Alright, so Inquisition time. Pithing Needle, Pithing Needle. Marsh Flats, Cling. Let's take the... Let's take the Pithing Needle, I think is the correct thing to take. That way they can't do something like Pithing Needle on both Saga and Expedition map. Because with their Saga, I imagine that their first choice for Pithing Needle is not Urza Saga, so... I could be shocked by that. Imagine Liliana of the Veil or Expedition map will be their first choice. Yeah, so Liliana of the Veil. So coincidentally, that Pithing Needle also takes care of theirs. Here we can go Karn the Great Creator. And, well, there's no reason to expose our rack to removal just yet. I'm curious how they will sequence here. Okay, they choose to sequence that way, meaning we know about a dam, an ensnaring bridge, and the cling to dust. And there's the portable hull, okay. So the portable hull on our Pithing Needle is fine. There goes the dam. I'm fine with sequencing like this. If they have like a Raven's Crime or some sort of their own, we can protect it with our Nihil Spellbomb. I do think we want to just keep this Spellbomb around instead of cycling it. Yep, that's fine. The Cling to Dust is decent in this matchup. We are going to just make them discard here. Get the free point of damage. There's no point of doing it now versus later. Okay, so it's the second Cling to Dust. Since they have lost the dam, notably, it's less important to play around sorcery speed removal, but still no particular reason to versus not to. I think we're going to tap this way. What should we get here? Oh, probably just another rack, right? And then that... That gives us a way to win outside of the ensnaring bridge. Okay. Does put them under a pretty aggressive clock. I'm not sure if they can outpace us even with the ensnaring bridge, but did we get rid of an ensnaring bridge? We did. So they have multiple main deck ensnaring bridges. I am curious about this line here. Okay, so they do decide to rack me. Construct doesn't really do anything particularly good here. We can just get another rack, Thoughtseize. Let's get the Karn the Great Creator in this spot. So we now have assembled the ultimate Racktron. So let's see what our opponents does. They're definitely not in a situation where they're going to want to play this Liliana of the Veil, I don't think. Okay, so they can cycle this. Alright, so that's going to be relevant against the Lingering Souls, potentially. Okay, so Liliana of the Veil is exactly where we want to be. We draw a land, we take over the game pretty quickly. So, that's very good. This is a very, very tricky mirror matchup. I do think there's some merit to a lot of the white splash. I'll have to ask Robert. This might be Robert's list that is being ran here too, because it is extremely similar to his list. Like so much so to the point that I would be very shocked if it wasn't. All right, so now we're going to stick the Liliana. Oh, huh. I'm so stupid. I forgot that this was on here, so that was a patent mistake on my part. Okay. Not sure about playing the Ensnaring Bridge out there. Yeah, I think we just start holding cards at this point. This makes for riveting TV, I know. But there's really not much we can do about getting this Pithing Needle offline for a while. All right. Yep, just going to keep holding cards. So now we're officially out of range of the opponent's rack. And hopefully we'll be able to just top deck a Raven's Crime and just kill them in one fell swoop. Yeah, so that keeps them able to attack now. Oh, I do see why they played the Ensnaring Bridge, was just so our construct tokens wouldn't be able to attack. Hopefully I didn't miss a point that they could have attacked earlier. If so, let me know in the comments. Legion's in. Okay, so there is a portable hole. Liliana of the Veil is a bunch of lands. Okay. It is odd here, the weird tension that Ensnaring Bridge versus our rack makes. Because they kind of have to play like one card each turn. If I was them, I think I would just play a land at this point. Maybe the portable hole on one of our racks. Okay, so Kaya's pretty good. The problem is if Kaya exiles one of our racks, they die, right? Not necessarily now that since they played their land out. That'll be an interesting card. Maybe we'll start playing to that one. We'll just play one of the swamps here. All right, Kai once again working on our racks. This is once again this is kind of the merit to running this card if you're our opponent. We are leaving ourselves open to take a damage next turn, but we're just going to start ticking this Karn up, getting some card advantage. What are the revealed cards? Inquisition and the second Karn. Yeah, they'll probably just let us have the second Karn. Hopefully we can start pulling ahead on cards here soon. We no longer have anything in our graveyard that they can exile, so... Alright, so they Thoughtseize. They're going to Thoughtseize away our Karn. Okay. Puts them at 8. They're in a pretty precarious spot. That doesn't gain them any life. I think they're going for this... Yeah, so they are going for this ultimate, aren't they? Okay, is there any world where I can win this game through this ultimate? I don't think so, right? Like, there's no... I'm a turn off getting Pithing Needle. Maybe if there's, like, some exact sequence of cards. Okay, so they do just let me have the land. That should be enough to just kill me, but we'll make sure that they see the line. I'm sure they do. They've played this game very well. Once again, yep. And we'll just scoop to that. Good game by our opponent. This is the riveting matchups we want to see, right? I like. Not even being sarcastic. Let's see. Let's bring back in one Spellbomb. And potentially take out Fatal Push. Huh. I still have not seen anything that makes me think Fatal Push is great. Maybe specifically... let's just go down in Urborg, actually. They're probably playing Urborgs of their own. They're less important. We can afford to go down a land or two in the super grindy matchups, especially where we're not playing Smallpox, so I'll take that. I do wonder if our opponent has any Leyline of Sanctities or anything in their sideboard. One of the benefits of playing white is that you can throw that in and not be a combo deck, because late game against burn or this sort of matchup that you can just throw up your shields under the Leyline of Sanctity. But I will say, if we're going to lose a matchup, then this is the matchup to lose. Alright, I like this hand pretty well. Fatal Push is not great. It's sad, but it is just a hedge against. Just a hedge against maybe like monster Saga tokens running amok. You don't want to get rid of all your decent creature removal. So Inquisition on us. It cannot get the Karn, but it can get the Pithing Needle. I'm sure they're wondering why we still have the Fatal Pushes in our deck at this point. Let's just get the portable hole here. We can play around a rack, but yep. Let's see if there's anything in their hand other than that. Yeah, we'll just take the dam, and then we'll Pithing Needle Karn the Great Creator. We are in a very interesting spot where we don't particularly want to be discarding where we're not under the rack at this point. Or we are under the rack at this point, I mean. We'll just fire this Thoughtseize off. This is tough, actually. There really isn't a great answer to this. I do think we just take the Lingering Souls, and it's specifically because I'd rather than not be able to cast it twice. And now we can answer that cleanly. Oh, gosh. Okay. Dealing quite a lot of damage to ourselves here with this Liliana of the Veil. On our upkeep, we're probably going to draw a card off our Nurturing Peatland. Yep, we'll just pass the turn now. Very interesting match here. All right. Do think we're just willing to discard a Fatal Push here and check these Karns. Just because why not? We could still work to a Liliana ultimate hypothetically. Okay, Lily on the Liliana, I'm guessing. But I'm not sure if that's necessarily where they want to be. Play this out. Sure, that's fine. Don't have a particular impetus to get rid of Karn the Great Creator or anything. Okay, so now we do have a reason to for them to have held that Karn. Awesome. So we can play the Urza Saga now without really any punishment. I do feel like I'm giving a little bit slower than normal reactions here, but the past several games have been much more complicated than our typical games on this channel, so I hope you've still enjoyed it and have just enjoyed getting to see the gameplay. Alright, so now we can create our artifact. We'll see what we draw here. We will be making one. We're just going to go ahead and kill this Karn. And I believe we are going to get an expedition map to do so. Alright. We can now play this land. And we are in a pretty good spot here. They're really forced to... Okay, so Surgical Extraction, getting our Urza Saga, is not bad here. I don't know if I would strongly consider Surgical bringing it in the board for this matchup, but I see why. You have Raven's Crime. You know that we have a very limited number of win conditions in our deck. Opponent is getting close to just dying here too, so they are aware of our hand. Like if we draw a land, we can just slam land, Karn. Okay, so just damn, that's fine. Land slamming Karn is pretty good here though, yep. This puts them on a whole new clock. The construct took, and this was legitimately the best possible land we could have drawn as well. Alright, so they're going to start Inquisitioning us. Okay, Thoughtseize us. In our upkeep here, what we're going to do is... Do we care? We'll just keep lethal. Oh, so it's lethal on play regardless, right? Oh, never mind. It's not lethal. I'm sorry. We're just going to get another Mishra's Factory. We will, unless I'm missing something. Oh, I guess they're one away from lethal here. All right, did we get there? We'll see what is in our opponent's hand here. Well, I'm going to give them a big GG's because that was a heck of a mirror. 2-0, taking down the #1 deck and the #1 trophy leader, and then the mirror matchup, which was much more difficult. And I hope you still enjoyed that matchup. Let's see. That middle game was a slog. How long did that take? Took a good. It felt longer than what it was. They all took, it was an average of 5 minutes a game. If you compare that to this, and it's game 1 was 2, game 2 was 5. But those long slogs of games like that, man, I wish we were playing a deck that being on the play was good, or we would just be rolling it in this game. So RVNG, if my memory serves correctly, often plays Living End. That doesn't mean that he's on Living End today, but I almost definitely remember him spoiling multiple 5-0s for me playing Living End in a meta that I was not prepared Living End to be played in. So we'll see. It will be good to see him on them. Sorry for assuming anything. Be good to see them on the play and see if they tip their hat. We're going to keep this hand based on the strength of Saga being able to get a Nihil Spellbomb. So that tells me that they are either Living End or the Neo brand. Is the only reason I could see. Okay, so they are Living End. So we do just get the Shardless Agent here. So that is pretty good that I've played enough. It's been, goodness, I don't know how many months since I've played this guy. So what is this? Dead Gone. 2 damage to target creature. Return target creature you don't control to its owner's hand. Okay. We do probably just Collective Brutality here. Just to get them down 1 card. If they drew a Force of Negation off that, that makes this Collective Brutality so much better. That puts them in a really difficult spot. Because now you have to choose, because the thing is, I'm definitely going to take the Force of Negation. So I can't imagine. Can't imagine a world where you don't just let this resolve if you have Force of Negation. Now, if he's got a different instant or sorcery, like, okay, I don't know about this one. Like, I couldn't imagine, like I said, any world where I'm not just taking the Force of Negation there. So, not sure about blowing it in this spot. All right, we're going to save this Urza Saga because that will. Yeah, maybe the thought process is here that he's going to have to aggressively remove Saga tokens. Opponent is playing a little bit slow for the deck that they're playing. and the situation that they're in. So it makes you think that they have potentially more than what they have going on. Okay, so Street Wraith. No land. We could get very lucky in this matchup. We are going to get the Spellbomb here. And, okay, gotcha. So he does that's enough to scoop. Fantastic. Now, we are much more favored after sideboarding. That does not mean that we're favored per se, but we are more favored for certain. This is probably I would go as far to say that this is 8-Rack's single worst matchup potentially. And that's a pretty bold claim, I know, but probably gonna go down these fatal pushes. We may go down all the fatal pushes. Bloodchief's Thirst is still okay enough. Then we'll bring in the two Bontu's Last Reckoning in. Oh, I did not bring in the Void Mirrors, and that's kind of a big reason why Void Mirrors in there. You can tell I'm a little bit rusty with the deck. Should have brought in Void Mirrors there, but hopefully it won't come back to haunt us. Well, there's really no way to measure that, if it would or not, so just going to assume that it was a mistake. So they are taking quite a bit of time. I imagine they're double queued or doing something else. Not entirely sure. It's does not make for great streaming though. But yeah, like it's let's look at their sideboard real quick. Yeah, definitely these Void Mirrors should have been in. It's debatable. The biggest problem with Collective Brutality is always, well, one, their best sideboard card against us is Foundation Breaker, and this does not hit Foundation Breaker. And also, like they bring it maybe slightly second to that is Leyline of Sanctity, which we did play against enough decks that having that removal for enchantments may be worth it eventually. We did play against an Urza Saga deck. Thankfully, like I've been preaching for a while now that just don't play the card Shrieking Affliction at 8-Rack anymore. It's not where you want to be. I still call the deck 8-Rack for two reasons, so that people who are looking up content can actually find the fact that someone's playing the namesake deck 8-Rack. This is perfect for the situation that we're in. Because if they have a Leyline of Sanctity, well, we've got a Leyline of Void, and we have two cards that play well around it. No reason to play this Urborg. We'll probably just discard it to our own Liliana at some point. It is curious to see if they have a Foundation Breaker in hand. They're unlikely to cycle anything until they can play their Foundation Breaker. Yep, we'll just continue doing this. Next turn, we'll play the Nurturing Peatland. So they appear to not have the Foundation Breaker. Maybe they have a bounce spell or something for this Leyline. Okay, so it's a Boseju. Okay. It's easy to forget that card's a... Well, Nihil Spellbomb's not very good with Leyline of Sanctity in play. We will definitely have to bring in the Void Mirrors and mulligan to them fairly heavily, given the circumstances. We're just going to each player discard a card, get rid of our Inquisition here. We can play a Leyline or a Nihil Spellbomb, not because it actually does anything for us, but just empties our hand more so we don't lose value to this Liliana of the Veil, potentially. let's draw, get our options here. We will pitch our Urborg here. Simply because, like I said, they could start casting Street Wraiths, things like that off of it. And there's no reason to allow them that. They do not have a great hand, all things considered. I think I would have kept that Curator of Mysteries just to try to hardcast it. But we line up very well against them just hardcasting things at this point, so. Even Shardless Agent. I'm hoping that they just don't realize that Nihil Spellbomb doesn't really do anything, but... Alright, so looking at the revealed cards. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Let's see. We'll just... We can't make them sack, actually, can we? So that is a bit annoying. But let's see if we can discard anything good. Get rid of our Thoughtseize, of course, because it's not doing anything this game. Alright. This being 3 CMC is a tad annoying. Yeah, we're just gonna kill the Curator. It's easy to forget. So Liliana's ultimate doesn't work either in this situation. Oof. That one's pretty big. Okay. So they didn't know necessarily that they could have just attacked us. So that's... Because unfortunately this card is not target opponent. Or it's not, each opponent's target opponent, so... There is a small downside. I do think that there's just a point. I guess they're still just playing around me being able to tick down Liliana, which I cannot do. I think I'm just going to pass the turn. I don't want to discard my Lochtwain, and it doesn't actually do anything to make them discard here, more than likely. Okay, so that shows us a little bit more. Yeah, do we have a way out of it from here? It's very unlikely. 2, 4, so that's 6, 10, 12. Hopefully he just wastes resources going. Okay. Did I miss my opportunity to block? I think I missed my opportunity to block. Oh, I couldn't block and draw a card anyway, so it's fine. Oh, so if I would have just blocked, I would have won the game possibly. Okay, so never hit draw card. That was one of my worst played matchups, so let's make up for that. Let's go down the Collective Brutality. Could maybe consider bringing back in a Fatal Push. I did not see... It seems like Foundation Breaker's no longer in their deck. Let's go down a couple Raven's Crimes for... maybe some Karn Sign of Urza's. Just that way, once we get to a really stalled state, we can just maybe make some bigger creatures than theirs. We are going to go first in this specific matchup. Ooh, this is tough. I don't know if Leyline of the Void is necessarily good enough just to keep here, but gonna do it. Especially given the likelihood that our opponent just mulls to their own Leyline. I am going to lead on the factory here. The reason being that if I want to cast black spells next turn, I can just use the Urborg anyway. If not, I can just start getting in for some beats. Oh, perfect. We can just cast this Void Mirror. Now we have 2 pieces of good hate. Not mulling the Leyline of Sanctity is interesting. We did take out some of our cards just purely based on the fact that we thought there was a chance that Leyline would be a possibility. We may as well just play this card because we can, of course, tap it without. All right, them stuck on lands is very big for us. It gives us the potential to cheese them out in various ways. Okay, so Foundation Breaker getting rid of the Leyline. Yep, they stack it so they can get their Foundation Breaker back if they do it correctly, which they appear to. Are going to be digging for hand disruption spells here. This is not good to play out in this specific instance because we could allow them to just discard a creature for free, and there's really no point in that. When we could just take another draw to see if we could find like a Thoughtseize or something to get rid of a Shardless Agent, something of that sort. And we could save this for a potential removal spell. Okay, so Waker of the Waves. We do have to get this Saga down next turn to get our... Alright, so it is imperative at this point that we find hand disruption, and we have not. Not in the greatest situation here. Guess we just gotta hope that they don't have it. They almost definitely have it, or they wouldn't have kept the hand, but that's the whole point of the deck is for them to have it, so. Yep, it gets the Saga. At this point, it didn't matter. So, turn too late on that one. We can just try to fight this fight. It's not going to work out well. Okay, our opponent is giving us a small window of potential victory here. Very unlikely. Oh, we knew that if our opponent kept a land without Leyline of Sanctity, that it had to be a pretty busted hand in the matchup. So, see what they have going on. But like I said, notoriously, this is our worst matchup. And we don't have anything. See if we would have drawn the board wipe off the top again. Nope. Not much we could do there. I did technically could have survived one more turn the game before, but it's very unlikely it would have made a difference. I think that pretty much all living in decks run all 4 living ends at this point. Something we could check on. We could do that actually. Well, it does not. We'll look at the modern meta here. I am curious. See how bad we misplayed. 3 living in. We saw 2 living in, so they did have one more potentially, I guess, is the average. We might be able to find... his deck list on the side here, but yep, that's him. It's pretty much just plays this deck as far as I know. But yeah, that's a tough matchup. I'm going to be gone for about half a second on the video here, but I will be returning shortly. All right, I'm back, and I missed the matchmaking. I'll have to rejoin the queue. I thought I had it set up that I would be alerted, but I guess not. I wonder. They say that you have increased matchmaking priority if you if someone else misses on you, but I wonder if you now have decreased matchmaking priority if it's vice versa. Let's see. So we'll check here too if we have any other famous names out and about. Tunneling Cat, we've played against them quite a lot. Not a lot of recognized names for me on this list. There's Aspiring Spike, Canister, things like guys like that. But I heard that there was kind of a bit of an exodus with Modern specifically at one point recently, because of the ubiquity of the gameplay. So that's could be a serious point of concern going forward. That's probably what caused the Luris ban. I did look, and there was a decent amount of people still in the league queues. I mean, like around 1,000, but they did back up to about 1,400 or so. Our opponent is USAZ. Don't know what they're on. Apparently, there is a way to see what your opponent's current record is as well. I don't know if it's through a bot or something, but I know that there's been plenty of times that people have known what I've been playing. Just hearing them, like me going back and watching later now, or excuse me, not knowing what I'm playing. A lot of people just assume that I play 8-rack, but well, I shouldn't say a lot of people. The people who have played against me enough to know that I've played 8-rack more than once assume that I play 8-rack. I'm sure. All right, let's see if we can. All right, Nettle Cyst, Reality Chip. Pretty easy to take the Reality Chip here because they no longer have a spell next turn. Urza's really the only thing we're threatened about out of that hand, but all right. So they do have an Arrayo. That seems like something probably worth Fatal Pushing. Let's look at their hand first. So Inquisition again. We should have, yeah. So we should have perfect knowledge of their hand, but may as well. Have a pretty good draw here against. Okay, so really not very concerned about cranial plating. So we're in, I would say, a very good spot at this point. We can just Thoughtseize twice. This can be a tricky matchup. I've not I definitely have not played against Araya. That's a spicy card. That makes me think that potentially they're playing a Mox Amber style deck too. If you've ever played against this card, I played a janky for fun combo deck with it. Not on stream, but many years ago. Or at least it feels like many years at this point. Alright, so cranial plating on the. Oh, that's just value there. Yeah, let's Smallpox. Alright, opponent does concede off that. They got pretty heavily obliterated there. I'm going to keep one Nihil Spellbomb in the deck because it's very likely that they're playing some Emery shenanigans. Actually, let's keep two. Don't think there's enough stuff to worry about Saga. Legion's End could be really good. Go down the Collective Brutality, go down the Funeral Charm, and I think we will go down. This is actually kind of tough. Go down one Smallpox. Pox seemed better in that one specific scenario than it actually probably is in the wider range of things. But Smallpox is a very, very blow you out, very swingy magic card. Like, it can be so good or it can be, frankly, horrible. But, oh, this is a tough one. I think, send back the Peatland here. No, let's send back the Rack, actually. It's going to be a while before we need a payoff, I think, if this hand plays out the way it should. So Ornithopter. Oh, boy. Legion's End looks like a card now. Okay, it's interesting to get rid of the Thought Monitor there. We'll potentially know why here soon. Shadow Spear, okay. So a couple different options. I think we could either Raven's Crime twice or go ahead and Legion's End. I think Raven's Crime twice is the correct answer. And there's a couple reasons for that, but I won't go into too big a detail. Don't think we care about the Urborg specifically here. Because I was going to say, whatever they have is better than a Thought Monitor, so it's got to be pretty good. Yep, so they did have a pretty good hand. And this should pretty much decimate the rest of their hand. As long as they specifically don't draw a land here. Okay. This is pretty good. Yeah, this will end up working out great. So now we can Legion's End. We know there's a Nettle System hand now. Great. Can Pithing Needle for the Shadow Spear. And that turns that into a dead card now. Regardless, they're in a pretty tricky spot here because they do lose their. There's no Mox Opal in this format. You can tell I've been watching and enjoying some Legacy because I was like, well, they can get Mox Opal and replace this land, but they cannot. This is very akin to the Legacy 8-cast deck that's just taking everything by storm. Oh, had I waited one more turn on the... Okay, so we can just push that now. Got it. Had we waited one turn on the Legion's End, it could have been like game-ending blowout, but I think we made the right call. Thought casting over the... Huh. Don't know about that one. Okay, because they... So now, what do I do here? So I Raven's Crime, get rid of the Nettle Cyst. And then next turn, I make them sacrifice the Ornithopter. Yep, so there's the Nettle Cyst. And then that way, because had I played Liliana and ticked it up, or played Liliana and ticked it down, that still leaves them with a pretty big creature threat. Okay, either Spellbomb. Hopefully they just equip with the Cranial Plating and attack. It's a big chunk of damage, but that turns their Spellbomb off from saving their Ornithopter, though. So that's good. I think I would have played that a little bit differently had I been my opponent. Because now we definitely... I guess because they have the Welding Jar. But Welding Jar does not protect against edicts at all. So we're in a pretty dominant position here, actually. Reality Chip is a good card. Cranial Plating on the Reality Chip. Okay. We're going to do each player discards a card. This will put them in a situation where they'll almost definitely have to attack the Liliana next turn. We might see if this channel land is worth anything with a Liliana in play. Because it is reduced 1 by each legendary creature I control. Alright, let's see what they do here. I would imagine you have to attack the Liliana. Yeah, you do. Okay. Okay, I can no longer use this ability, but if I draw into another land, I now can. And I did. Fantastic. Alright, that allows me to Takenuma at their instep here. Reality Chip is a good... I do like this in these decks. I really wanted to brew some version of a Stoneforge Mystic deck with this card. Okay, that should probably end the game right there. I would imagine. There's not a lot we can do in this situation, but... So now they can start going crazy, casting cards off the top of their deck. Oh, so just cranial plating, okay. They have put themselves a little bit weak to Fatal Push Edict here. I guess not necessarily. Get our Liliana back. Okay. Is there any way that we can survive this situation? I don't think so. Let's try to dig for it. I guess Fatal Push for this construct. Yep. So we did find the one situation, or the one card here that gets us technically out. I am just going to Fatal Push this now, as they may have some sort of counter magic. You can just start like going off with Urza here later, so we do live to survive another round here. Alright, so it looks like that casts that off the top of their deck. Three mana for the Nettle Cyst, okay. Now we're starting to get into we're in trouble territory. Again. For the second time. Yep, so equips here. Wow, that puts them extremely weak to the Edict. They know I have those. The thing. Oh, so that's lethal. Never mind. I forgot that that ability stacks. And they know my hand, but GG. Have one more against the deck. Let's see. Fatal Push wouldn't have got us out of that situation. I guess our opponent... Oh, so no, they had tapped the Welding Jar for mana. I was like, I guess they could have used that, but I did not see... I don't remember for sure had they tapped it or not. Void Mirror is something to consider. I think we want to be on the play in this matchup in particular. This looks like an awful hand, but 24 lands, we draw one land in the next 3 turns. It's pretty good, so we'll take this hand. 4 removal spells against the deck that's a little bit weaker to removal spells and a way to close out the game is perfectly fine with me. Alright, so Thought Monitor. Once again, when they're discarding Thought Monitor, certainly makes you wonder what's going on in that hand. And I guess we're going to be able to find out now. May just be that they're a ways off of ever casting it. Alright, so Memnite, Thoughtcast, Soratami. Or Arrayo, Soratami Ascendant. Let's take Is this the fourth spell? So she's 1, 2, 3. That is pretty risky if we... Wait, so let's factor this up. So if they go land... Okay, so there's no way that they could cast that this turn. Well, specifically if they... Okay, no, there's no way that they can cast that this next turn. As far as I know, cards that are legal in this format. Is that the fourth total spell or just the fourth spell? So just the fourth spell. Okay. All right. That lines up well with what we've got going on. We'll play a rack. Hopefully they now start dumping their hand. All right. Well, us not drawing a land nor them playing any spells there is a little bit rough. So they do play the Ornithopter just to not have to discard the hand size. Don't think there's any point of... Alright, let's go Pithing Needle Expedition map. Crack the Expedition map. We'll get ourselves a second land. Probably just get... let's just get a... Let's get the Castle Lochtwain here. That allows us to kind of do the most of what we've got going on. So now I do think we just take the Arrayo. Just so that there's no chance that they could do something absolutely crazy and go off. Alright, so not much going on from our opponent here. I actually like the idea of just smallpoxing here. It just puts them so far away from doing anything. That gives us time to really sculpt our hand with removal. And hopefully we draw some sort of Urza Saga or something like that, that we have an alternative to the rack game plan. But puts no permanents in play. If they want to play a Mim Knight next turn, we have a Fatal Push for that, so... Alright, well... That is a way for us to win the game. Alright, so they play their Mim Knight just so they don't have to discard the hand size. Got it. In step, we're just going to Fatal Push that, just because, why not? Alright, well, once again, we have gone through 4 lands now, so it's not egregious that we haven't hit a land here. Alright, so now they're discarding for free too, so if we hit a land, okay, that should be game, I would imagine. No lands in play, and now we're starting to whittle their hand. Okay, yep, that should be enough. Awesome. Well, 3-1. If we can go 4-1, and our only loss been to Blue Living In, I can take that. Of course, it's always nice to 5-0. But that match is probably by far our most difficult. And even kind of knowing it was coming, we not exactly the most prepared for that one. We have more preparation than we did in the past. Game 2, I did forget to bring in those Void Mirrors, but it's just that, if, ands, and buts, it is always good to check and see, is there anything I could have done better potentially in that match? And in that one specifically, there certainly was. Now, whether that thing actually made the difference in the game or not, I'm not entirely sure, but we had a decent chance of winning game 2 as well had we not accidentally skipped past our block phase, our chance to block on MTGO too. Splogy. Well, we do finally get a situation where our opponent has to choose whether or not to play first, so I think we can keep this hand. I don't know what our opponent's on typically. My avatar did change. I'm not loving the Beholder. I missed my squirrel a little bit, but it is what it is. I'd like to get a new one. Maybe in this next treasure chest, I'll get a new one from this set. All right, I'm guessing it's probably four-color elementals of some sort. It is most definitely not four-color elementals. What is this? Okay. We're going to take the Slogurk. That seems pretty central to whatever nonsense they're doing. So it is at least a three-color, it is confirmed a four-color pile. Got it. Good to know, I guess. I guess we just start getting Saga online. I'm not sure what else to do in this spot. We know that... If we Inquisition, they're just going to lightning bolt our face, I would think. But I think we're actually okay with them doing that. That way we know it doesn't hit the Saga token. Oh, so Realms Uncharted. Huh. I don't know about that one either, but four lands with different names and reveal them. I think that definitely has the ability to get a Boseju here, so we're not going to give them that chance. Alright, I like the way that this hand has kind of sculpted itself. Not necessarily playing around Bolt here, but we could, given that that was the necessity. Okay, so no land drop is big. No land drop means I'm not going to play around the Lightning Bolt. I'm just going to say, if you want to bolt my construct, bolt my construct. That's fine. Yep, that's fine. Because we have a second construct coming. Second construct engaged. Second bolt. Okay. Well, Oh, so we do have the expedition map in play. So I will just want to get... It's tempting to get the Nihil Spellbomb. Like, actually very tempting. For several reasons, because it can trigger... trigger Revolt as well, but we are just going to get the Rack here. Had I knew the second bolt was in hand, I would have more strongly considered... Oh, so the Wooded Foothills is gone. That's interesting. Okay. Okay. So, Fury Unknown. So Dashed Ragavan. Okay, so now we can play around Dashed Ragavan, but Dashed Ragavan does mean potential Fury is incoming. We're just going to get another Urza Saga. Play our Urza Saga. Them drawing a land is rough. Ragavan's fine. Okay, so now they're at combat, so we can just go ahead and Fatal Push that. Oh, perfect. Right, because we can just go boom. They discarded the Ragavan. Yep, let's get rid of the Fury. They know that's their path to victory. We know that's their path to victory. That's the only way they're going to win this game. Oh, so never mind. So they didn't have the Fury. I'm doing a bad job reading cards today. But the Seismic Assault is definitely. I was like, whatever they have that's better than Ragavan. Like it's okay. What could this be? Slogurk, that's fine. Let me read exactly what he does. Turn up to 3 target lands from your graveyard to your hand. Wow, so we don't want to kill this card. Got it. Not with the rack in play, at least. We could Nihil Spellbomb and Fatal Push, but I think we'd rather just rack and stay back, because that puts them on a faster clock. Like, they would have to suicide this Slogurk in some way, like bolt their own Slogurk or something like that. Expressive Iteration, alright, looking pretty good for us. So we have a burn spell and a discard spell at our disposal. Overall, pretty good game so far. Second expressive iteration, okay. That does still, If we draw a land too, we could just... Oh, so we've got lethal no matter what next turn, right? Because we could just cycle the Peatland. No, not necessarily no matter what. We'll see what we draw. Is that lethal? So let's see. If I play that, sack it. I feel like I'm definitely overthinking this. But the problem is if I let this thing die, they get all their lands back to hand. So I think the correct answer is Collective Brutality. Oh, yeah, so it is lethal, right? So Collective Brutality, you lose 2, I gain 2. And Raven's Crime you. And no matter what they do. Yep, no matter what they do, it's lethal there. Great. Great, great, great. So we probably actually want to bring in the Leylines on this matchup. It seems odd, but they're definitely some sort of Wrenn and 6 value-y deck. I'm not... I don't know. I don't know if that's enough to... They also have access to... Ooh. So they have access to the main deck Bosejus, too, so that makes me immediately change my mind, actually. I'm just assuming they have access to the main deck Bosejus. I don't know why they wouldn't. Really, our main deck is pretty well lined up for what's going to go on. I think I'm going to bring in a Hex Parasite just for an additional play against Wrenn and 6, but I'm not convinced enough that I'll need a Pithing Needle necessarily, so that's my logic there. Smallpox is still pretty good in the matchup. We'll go down 1 Raven's Crime. It is the weakest of the discard spells against the deck that can just infinitely recur lands, so this could end up being like a genuinely miserably tricky matchup if things go well for them. So the turn 1 Ragavan. This is why we run so many of the 1 mana interactive spells, by the way. If you've ever wondered, because if this thing connects like 3 and 4 times throughout a game, it's going to run away the game in our particular deck. Now, if you're playing Tron or some combo deck, so I guess that includes Tron. Okay, so there's the card that I knew was in their 75 somewhere. All right. Because they probably have ways to lock us pretty well. Yeah, let's take the Express. Yeah, the Boseju is pretty good against us. Especially considering, like, that's our way to take care of this Wrenn and 6, is that Pithing Needle. Alright. They do have a life from the Loom in hand, but yeah, like I said, this could be, actually, Pithing Needle on Boseju works, right? So That's something I need to do next game, I guess. Ugh. They're really like that. I sincerely doubt we can win, and that's that. Like I said, I kind of knew that to be the case, but was hoping that it wouldn't be. But I doubt that there's a way for us to win through this Boseju. Like we have to either. So I think that it's so rough. I guess because the Boseju gets exiled the first time, maybe we do the thing where we. So they do mill the. Okay, so we're at least going to learn a little bit about their deck first before we just pack it in. Honestly, if they want to continue to ramp us by blowing up our rack, things like that, I'm actually pretty fine with that. That's why I'm like, I'll play the rack out into this specific board state. Life from the Loam. Had I known it was specifically a Life from the Loam deck, I think I would have been a little bit more cognizant of how things are going to play out here. But like this is just going to get Boseju'd as well. Boseju really is just a nightmare for our deck to play against. Basically, all of our win conditions are non-creatures. So here, what we'll want to do is... Yep. Okay. So let's just see if we can get lucky and either hit a Liliana of the Veil or a Karn here off this. Alright, so we did whiff, but that also means that we cleared 3 cards that were probably... Blood Chief's Thirst would have been good. Okay, so Castle Lochtwain. That's going to get busted up by the Boseju too. Jeez. Just all of our card advantage pieces are just getting, like, absolutely thwarted by this Life from the Loam pile. This doesn't actually do a whole lot. You know, it puts them down a land drop, but especially if they are willing to... Yep, we're going to use Boseju's ability. Starting to run fairly low on basic lands here. I mean, I wouldn't say low, but hopefully by now they see that they're definitely not going to be able to Boseju plan us out. Ren and 6 ultimating here, I'm not sure about. I think I would have considered leaving him in one more turn. But they got to know that the game's just so locked up. Okay, so never mind. I was going to say, unless they have another one. The game is just locked up at this point. Alright, so more Saga. It's just going to be a slow burn. Like, there's just no way that we can win this game. So it is confirmed that we should bring in our Leylines. Their life total being just at 12. Okay, so the Seismic Assault will whittle our life away very, very, very quickly. Yep. It'll be 6 to 8 damage a turn, potentially. Okay, we're just going to concede to that because they're not going to show us anymore. And I'm sure, and I won't waste the viewers' time. Okay, so we do know... Bring in those ley lines. Probably bring in the Karns. And I think we take out the Smallpoxes, actually. We saw, like, the deck that we just saw there was not at all the deck that we saw the first game, I think. So we're going to change up how we interact with them just a little bit. The fact that, you know, being in 5 colors like that, I do think we want to be on the play for very specific reasons, but and that very specific reason being Veil of Summer is a good sideboard card right now because of decks like us. But there are other decks too that play well with Veil. Our curve goes pretty well here, all things considered. Hopefully this will strongly discourage a dashing Ragavan. Having 2 mana open like this. It is hard to say. We are just going to get the Saga, of course. This is a tricky spot. I think we have to be willing to play into counter magic here. Because, like, if they're doing all this and running counter magic, I was going to say, that's just insane. It's like if they've managed to squeeze all that into a single deck, I will be extraordinarily impressed. It's like you're talking about multiple archetypes at that point, all present. So they discard a Slogurk. Hopefully we figured out a way to turn off Unholy Heat or something of that nature as well. Expressive Iteration on turn 3 is one of the best plays for them in this matchup. Barring, specifically, if we are correct to play around Veil of Summer here, which it's looking more and more like that's what's happening. Just like it's the way that, okay, so like they definitely have a Veil, and that looked like what they were keeping the strength of their hand on, was just Veil. All right, so now tick this up. Still in a good spot. I feel like our Leyline is keeping them relatively at bay. No reason to play into any sorcery speed removal, especially something like a Renin 6. 2 mana. I'm guessing Expressive Iteration once again. Sure thing. Leyline limiting the first Boseju to just 1 use could be pretty huge because there's no telling. Like, I'm guessing they don't run more than 1 or 2, at most 3 of that card. I can't imagine running 4. Maybe 4 total in sideboard though, but eliminating 1 out of the game by the way that it has to work is pretty big, I think. Guessing the Boseju is coming soon. We'll see though. It's becoming more and more clear that we're not going to win with racks this game though. Just bolt the construct probably. Nope, not yet. All right. This time I think I'm going to... So we did use our expedition map. I think we Pithing Needle Boseju here. It is Boseju who endures, correct? And it is... Yep, it is a... it is a channel land. So now we have a way to play around Lightning Bolt as well. Okay, so they did have a Boseju up. I think if I was them, I would have probably fired that Boseju off in response, but it's a tricky situation. Like they've not even necessarily seen that Pithing Needle's in our deck, so not going to blame them for that. We will more than likely cycle this Nurturing Peatland at end of turn, but actually probably not for a couple reasons. The biggest one so that we can protect these constructs from bolts. Yeah, Leyline was the right call this game. Ren in 6, that's fine. So we're definitely going to kill Ren in 6 next turn. Okay. If that's where they're at, I like where our spot is. I'm just going to tick up. If we put our shields down to I don't think it's worth putting our shields down to cast this Leyline of the Void to have protection from essentially this card. I mean, like we've already shut down Boseju as far as we know. Uh, the real question is, so 4, 8, 10. Yeah, if we just fire this up and attack, that's potentially lethal. They definitely have some sort of answer removal wise. Hopefully they bolt the Mishra's factory. Oh, boom! No answer. That is lethal. We got there. The 4-1 lost to the Living End deck. I'll probably be kicking myself for who knows how long, thinking that we might have been able to have a 5-0 had we squeaked that one out. But 4-1, deck performed great. Beat the trophy leader. Won the mirror match. Lost 1-2 against our worst matchup. So we'll definitely take it. Thank you all for watching. I will be posting this up tonight, and hope you all have a wonderful time and keep racking.